Kuzu Zangbo. Welcome to the e-learning project. I'm Sonam Zangmo from Drugal Center School, and today's lesson is going to be on supply is determinants and law of supply for key stages 4 through 5, that is for grades 9 through 12. The objective of this subject is by the end of the lesson you would be able to understand what supply means, the first one, then what are the factors that will determine supply, and lastly we will also look into the law of supply, and you will also be able to derive law of supply and also understand, along with the derivation of the supply curve, you will also be able to understand what supply schedule means. Now let's look at the lesson in detail. The first topic we're going to be looking at is, since we talk about the first objective was you have to understand at the end of the lesson what supply means, we're going to be looking at what is supply. Supply in the language of a common man or a layman means just supplying quantity of some commodity to some consumers, like either it can be close to you or far away from you. But in the strict definition of supply in the economic subject is not really far away from how we commonly understand what supply means, but there are certain factors, and these certain factors here are highlighted with red letters. And so if you look at the definition of supply in economics, in the strict context of economics as a subject, it refers to the quantity of a commodity supplied at a particular price during a particular period of time. So like I mentioned earlier, here the words highlighted in red are the key words, which means when you learn about supply, you need to emphasize on these words. Quantity is very essential when you talk about supply, to mention quantity, because you just cannot supply anything. There should be a unit. Either you phrase it in terms of, like, for example, like 5 kgs of rice, 1 meter of cloth, or 1,000 meters of cloth, or tons of rice. So there should be a unit, and that's with reference to the quantity supplied at a particular price. Well, one of the things you need to know when you talk about supply is a representation of producers, meaning if producers do not produce goods and services, there won't be any supply. So when we talk about supply here, particular price is very important. So that's why it's highlighted in red. Why price is tagged with supply? Because no producer in the world, in the entire world, would produce and supply the goods and services free of cost. So that's why at a particular price during a particular period of time. So particular period of time means you just cannot say that supply of something can go on and on and on. It talks about a particular, in economics, generally we have 3 time periods. That's the short period, market period, and the long period. So period is very important because it gives essence to how much a supplier is able to supply the goods and services, at what price, and also the quantity. All right, let's move further. In another word, the definition of supply, you can understand the definition of supply as it is the quantity of a commodity which producers, sellers, or manufacturers are willing to produce and offer for sale at a given price during a given period of time. Now, some of you may find this quite similar to the earlier definition. However, you need to understand here, I have emphasized on the words producer, sellers, or manufacturers. And these 3 words are highlighted in red again, because you need to bear in your mind that these 3 words, without this, well, they're written as 3 different words. But in reality, you need to understand that they are synonyms, meaning you can either use one of them, okay? So no producers, no sellers, no manufacturers, no supply. That's something you can understand or relate to. Are willing to produce and offer for sale. So which means if somebody has produced something, if he keeps it to himself, it doesn't become supply. What is supply? Somebody goes into production of a commodity, he or she is willing to supply it or are ready to take it to the market or to the consumers. That's why are willing to produce and offer for sale. Offer for sale. Look at the word here. It's written in red because this is one of the key words you have to bear in mind. At a given price, we already talked about price, so we're not going to reiterate on this, and during a given period of time. So I hope with these two definitions, which are not far away from each other, you have understood the meaning of supply. Let's move further then. We're going to be looking at the determinants of supply. Now, when we talk about determinants of supply, some majority of you, let's say 99% of you are going to get what it means by determinant. But I like to break down this word into the simpler version, the simplest of its version. So when you talk about determinants, here we're going to be talking, or we're going to understand what will make a producer to supply more, or what will make a producer to supply less. Can you guess of some factors that will make the producer supply more and less? All right, let's move further. The first one is price of a commodity. So basically, we're going to be looking at 5 factors, and do not worry, we're going to go through each factor in detail. The first one is price of a commodity, goals of a firm, input prices, future prices, expectation, and taxation and subsidy. So these are the key factors or determinants that will make either supply to be more or less. Of course, some of you may be thinking, oh, is that only the factor, or are there only these factors here? Well, no, there are more factors. However, in the interest of time, we're going to emphasize on these key determinants of supply. The first determinant of supply is price of the commodity. All right? We know nothing comes free of cost. Everything has a price tag. All right? So for this, I have a food for thought for you. You can go through this statement and reflect on. I'm going to be reading. You may read with me. All right? So since monsoon season is around, you know there will be more demand for the umbrellas, which means the price of the umbrellas will be high. Do you agree? Yes. On the other hand, since summer has already set in, the price of warm clothing will fall. All right, so let's see. Now, this is your job. This is what you need to do. This is the real reflection you have to do. Now, imagine you own a firm and your firm is producing both the above items. Which item would you supply more and why? Why would you supply from the above 2 items that you will be producing? Which item would you produce more and supply, and what is the reason? All right, okay, let's look at this. Obviously, you will supply more which has a higher price, as it will earn more profits. So producers are motivated to produce goods and services because they have a reward. And what is the reward? The reward is the profit. So if it's monsoon season, yes, obviously you will go into the production of the umbrellas because the demand for umbrellas will be high. And when it is high, you know what will happen is price will increase. When price increases, it is an ultimate motivation for the producer. So you will go into the production of umbrellas. All right? Let's move on with the second factor, goals of the firm. Generally, the sole goal of a firm who goes into production is to maximize their profit. However, we're going to be looking at 3 different goals of the firm. The first one is, can you guess? Yes, you're right, profit maximization. So profit maximization. Well, we talked about earlier that producers are motivated by profit, and if they earn more profit, they will produce more. So profit maximization. If a producer earns more profit, he will supply more. All right? And vice versa, meaning no profit, less supply, or perhaps supply of a product may totally go out of like, you know, supply may completely stop. That's what I want to share here. The second goal of the firm is sales maximization. Some firms are there who would want to maximize their sale. And what is the reason behind? The supply will be more so as to reach maximum consumer. Interestingly, except that is written in a different sentence, all right? What it means is when you can supply more to more consumers, what is your benefit? The benefit is more supply, more profit. So some of the goals of different firms in the world, okay, at large, they adopt these kinds of goals. The ultimate one, the last one we have is the risk minimization. If you look at these words, again here, I have highlighted it in different colors because these are the key words. So risk minimization, risk, there is a danger, all right? Maybe your company may collapse, or maybe there is an increase in the cost of production because of which your sale, perhaps this is the prediction. You feel that, my goods may not earn good price. So if it doesn't earn good price, what will happen to your profit? Your profit obviously will go down. So if these are the risks that a firm or an industry foresees or predicts in a near future, all right, what they will do is supply a smaller quantity so as to avoid the risk. Because nobody wants to go into production without profit. So to avoid the risk, they will supply less, all right? Did you understand? I hope so. Let's move further. The second one is input price. Now, input price, by input price, what we are talking about is we are, in other words, in the strict context of the economics as a lesson, it means the price of the factors of production. So what do you think will happen if the factors of production, their prices increases? What will happen to the supply of goods and services? Let's look at this. If the producer has to pay a high price to acquire factors of production, their cost of production will be high, which results into lesser supply and vice versa. Now, can you make this relationship like, high cost of production and less supply? Something is missing in between. The missing portion means that when the cost of production is high because you have to pay, or you might have to pay a higher price for the raw materials, in other words, what will happen is you have to increase the price, all right? So when you increase the price, what will happen is you're going to lose your consumers because no consumer would want to pay higher price except for exceptional cases. Generally, people like you and me, we want to go, or we want to buy, or we want to consume goods and services which carries like average prices or minimum prices. This is the reality. All right, let's move on with the next factor, policy of taxation and subsidy. This is also a large factor that will influence how supply will operate, meaning whether the supply will be more or less. See, the imposition of heavy or higher taxes on a commodity increases the cost of production, which results into lesser supply and vice versa. Because when you pay a high tax, what will happen is the prices of the goods and services your firm may be producing, they don't have choice but to increase the price because you have to pay a high tax to the government. So as to make up for the tax that you pay to the government, you don't have choice but to increase the price of your commodity that your firm is producing. So when there is a high tax imposed, supply obviously will go down. However, when the government grants subsidies, all right, subsidies, in other words, you can understand it as a discount on tax or financial or physical support from the government to help you with production. So as to, this generally happens in regions where the government wants to develop a particular region. So when there is subsidy, it means either you don't pay any tax or the tax that you pay are discounted. So in that way, the profit becomes more. The producer has a higher opportunity or chance to earn more profit. So with subsidy granted by the government, supply will be more, but taxation, higher tax, supply will be less, lower tax, supply will be, higher tax, supply will be less, lower tax, supply will be more. All right, let's move. So it's given there, all right. Please make sure you focus, once again I'm reminding, focus on the words which has a different color. Here, the red color. All right, now the next one is expectation regarding future prices. So this is the speculation. Some producers, if they have an idea of what is going to happen to the price of their product, all right. For example, now let's talk about the current scenario with this COVID-19, all right, pandemic around the world, or pandemic set in. people, sadly, they will hoard certain goods and services. Particularly, we hear that grocery or retailers are hoarding rice and basically the essential items because they feel that the price might increase later on. So same thing is being, we have a similar situation here. It means if the producer expects that there will be increase in the price of a commodity in future, all right, then they will supply less now. That is the hoarding. And hoarding means the creation of artificial scarcity. It doesn't mean there is no rice in the market. It doesn't mean there is no oil or salt or sugar or milk powder or milk in the market. It is there. But people assume, this is a wild assumption. This is not right, okay? This is not right. We should not do this. We are a G&H country. We should not do this. You have to be honest and we have to help each other. Hoarding is not good. However, sadly, some producers are doing this, all right? Some producers are doing this. And so, if they feel price is going to increase in a matter of a month or a week or some couple of months, what they will do is they will pretend, they will hide the goods and services because they know that if they sell it at the time when the price is high, they will benefit more, all right? And also in a similar way, if they know that, oh, price is going to go down in a matter of a week or a month, what they will do, producers will supply more in the current situation. Now, the next one is law of supply. We talked about supply. We talked about determinants of supply. We have to look at law of supply. Law of supply is the relationship, okay, between price and the commodity supplied with all the here, ceteris paribus means with other things remaining same because when we talk about supply, price is not just a factor. There are many other factors. So here, it refers to the positive relationship between the price of a commodity and quantity supplied of that commodity. So, what we learned with the price as a factor determining supply, higher the price, more the supply. And that is the direct relationship or as the positive relationship. More the price, more the supply, less the price, less the supply. Other factors, say here, ceteris paribus, other factors affecting supply remaining constant, an increase in price leads to an increase in quantity supplied and vice versa. So this is the law of supply. Remember, law of supply has a direct relationship between price and quantity supplied. All right. Now we're going to be looking at supply schedule. What is a supply schedule? It's already there. Yes, is a tabular representation of the law of supply. And here, if you look at the table below the statement given there. And if you look at each figure, you will see that the left-hand column, which is written in blue, reflects the price of the commodity. So you will see that it's like, it's increasing. It's increasing. Price is increasing and so is quantity, and that's what we mean by direct or positive relationship. So supply schedule, just you put the figures, you put the values of the prices, you put the prices and the units of quantity sold at a certain period, okay, in a table format, and that is supply schedule, all right. What is supply curve, all right? Now, supply curve again is just deriving or just drawing a curve with the help of the supply schedule. So we're going to be looking at, because we have two statements here, what we're going to be doing is, we're going to be deriving, we will derive the, because we have a question here, all right? We are supposed to derive the supply curve from the supply schedule. So we're going to be using this supply schedule we had earlier, all right? So this is it. A supply curve can be only drawn with the help of a supply schedule. Please bear that in mind. And so you have two axes. This is the y-axis and this is the x-axis. Very important, students, because when we evaluate your paper, these are components we look at. So you have to bear this in mind. On the x-axis, what we reflect is, we reflect the quantity supplied of the goods and services. Quantity supplied of goods and services, OX. OY, we reflect the price. So here, what we are going to be doing is, this is nothing new to you. You have learned this since your elementary school. I mean, not really elementary school, I'm sorry. You have learned this in your subject mathematics, drawing the graph. So what we are going to be doing is, we're going to be borrowing the values from the schedule there, and then we will draw. And when you draw that, what you're going to have is, this is going to be your supply curve. This is going to be your supply curve. Now, some of you may be wondering, all right, sometimes we also have a curve, like, because this is the confusion. Okay, the teacher is saying curve, supply curve, but here I have drawn a straight line. Never mind, it is absolutely correct. Whether you draw a straight line or a curve, both are pronounced, or both are both are used to represent a supply curve. However, what you need to bear in mind is that your supply curve should be positively sloped. By positively sloped, higher the price, higher should be the supply curve. And so if you look at this, lower the price, okay, lower the quantity demanded. So this is how we will draw the supply schedule. Derive the supply curve from the supply schedule that's given. The second question we have is, what is the difference between supply and demand curve? What's the difference? All right, supply goes straight. It is positive. There is a positive relationship between price and the quantity supplied. However, in demand, if you look at demand, all right, we need to have a schedule for demand. All right, 0, quantity demanded, and this is the price. Now, so this means here, higher the price, higher the supply, lower the price, lower the supply. This is law of supply, direct relationship. So, with the help of the supply schedule that we had earlier, we have drawn the supply curve. And so, if you look at the supply curve that's been drawn here, what you need to understand is that when the, let me change this as well, all right, here, when the price is high, quantity supplied is also high. Higher the price, quantity supplied increases. Then when the price falls from P to P1, what has happened is quantity supplied also falls from or decreases from Q to Q1. And what does it show? It shows this. Simply it shows this. When the price is high, supply will be high. When the price is low, supply will be low. Why? Producers are motivated by profit. Nothing comes free that is produced by producers, unless for charity purpose, everything has a price tag with it. And so, this shows that the direct or the positive relationship, see, positive, all right, high, high, low, low, positive. Now, the second question we are supposed to look at is to understand or to go into discussion the difference between a supply curve and a demand curve. So, we already have the supply curve with the help of the supply schedule we had earlier. Now, we are going to be having a demand schedule, because what did I say? Without a schedule, you cannot draw the curve. Of course, you may understand it, you feel you may know, but then I suggest you can have a schedule. That's better for no error, okay, or lesser error. So, the assumption is we have the price on the left hand column here and the quantity demanded on the right hand. And so, I said these are the prices of the pen. Right now, as students, pen, you are in need of pen. So, when you talk about the price of the pen, you will see that the price is increasing. All right. So, at Neutron 10, which is the lowest price for the pen, what is the quantity demanded? Suppose, let's say, we go to the market and we look around in the stores and we find that these are the price ranges for the pens that we want to use right now. So, it starts from 10 and the highest is 30. How many of us will buy pens at Neutron 10? Majority of us. This is the reality, all right. So, Neutron 10, 5. Let's keep these two figures in between. Let's go to the extreme. This is another value here. This is the price. Neutron 30, price has shot up from 10 to 30. But what has happened to the quantity demanded? Quantity demanded has over the period decreased, which means majority of us would not be happy to buy the most expensive pen. And so with these values, if you put it here on a curve, in the interest of time, I'm not going to put the values, all right? But you understand that what is, this is the schedule we have used. This is the figure by which we have this curve. And so if you put this, let's say this is the initial price, okay? Initial price niltrum 30. At niltrum 30, this is our quantity. But when price decrease from 30 to 10, so which means price has fallen down, what has happened here is that our quantity demanded has increased. What do you see here? Let me put it this way. Higher the price, lower the demand. Lower the price, higher the demand. Excuse me, bear with me with my letters. All right, so highest price, quantity demanded is 1. Here, 1, niltrum 30. All right, here lowest price, niltrum 10. What's the quantity demanded? 5. So the difference between these two graphs is that supply direct relationship, demand indirect relationship or inverse relationship in other words. All right. So let's move further then. Yes, so now we have the reflections. We have come to the end of the lesson and we have some reflections here. These are, by reflection, we are supposed to think. I took you through a lesson and you are supposed to think on the lesson right now, okay? What can cause an increase in supply? Is it increase in taxes, technology improvements, production costs increases, price is expected to rise in the future? Which one? They can be, this is not an MCQ, there can be more than one answer here, all right? Let's move with the second reflection. Imagine you own a firm which is producing leather shoes. Which of the following will cause the supply of leather shoes to decrease? An increase in the price of leather shoes, an increase in the price of leather, a decrease in the price of shoelaces, an increase in number of shoe makers. What do you think? A dress manufacturer is expecting higher prices for dresses in the near future. Near future, maybe in a day or so, or maybe in an hour or so, all right? What would happen to the supply of dresses currently? How would the emergence of coronavirus disease influence supply in the market? So this is basically a CBQ question, all right? And then with this, we have come to the end of the lesson. Thank you for being with me. Please wash your hands and stay safe. Thank you.